Well, hello. Welcome to Mrs. Bell Sweet Treats and More. This is my YouTube channel. Today is Monday and this is Monday Moments. We are here in the middle of spring. You can probably hear the birds. They get up quite early in the morning here and they like to hang out all day. But it is such a wonderful colors all around with spring in the air. And it kind of, gives you, for many of us that have been inside a lot, it's really a beautiful day today. So this is one of the favorite recipes, of course, that my family and I have shared for years. And it's called, basically it's a snowball cookie. But with spring coming, we did a spin on the snowball cookie. The snowball cookie in itself, in the color, is fine with the white looking like snow, but we did a spin on it and we added different colors to our confectioner sugar that goes on the top of the cookie. So I want to share this with you, and this is our springtime cookie, because remember, cooking is perspective, how you see yourself, how you see what you cook, and how you believe, what you believe about yourself. Cooking takes courage. Remember our earlier tapings, we talked about courage. It takes you coming out of what you thought you could do. There are many people that can cook better than me, but nobody can cook like me, because I'm the only me. You're the only you. So we're going to get started. Of course, you click on the bottom and you'll see the link and the recipe. I'm going to begin, and I'm using my KitchenAid or standalone, but you can also use your regular beater. You don't have to use a KitchenAid for this. And then I'm just going to cream my butter. And I'm going to add my confectioner sugar. This is the confectioner sugar that I'm adding to the recipe, which is not the topping. It is just that part of the recipe. So I'm going to cream that until it gets nice and yummy. You want the butter and the sugar to incorporate really well. We talked about this too before. We sometimes go into our lives separated. We are as butter, and then there's sugar over there, or vice versa. And instead of incorporating, we tend, some people may tend to just want to be butter, because butter is all of that by itself. Sugar is all of that by itself. But oh my goodness, when you incorporate them and cream them together, what a wonderful flavor. So I'm going to scrape down. The recipe is not going to take a long time, but it will take paying attention. You know, sometimes I know it's hard to believe, I get distracted. So I'm scraping this down, and I'll let you see what it looks like in a minute, but I want to just make sure I get my sugar mixed in with my butter. I'm going to do this a little bit more. Of course, I tend to have stuff going everywhere, but that's okay, because that's me. You may be very organized and not have that. That's fine. Don't let that change your mind about cooking or about my cooking. So, I'm going to add vanilla to this. That's about a teaspoon. And I've been cooking a while, so I usually just eyeball it, but you can use a teaspoon, of course. And I'm going to incorporate in this some flour, a little bit of salt. Gonna add a little bit at a time. So when you are, many of us are preparing to go back to work or back to what we were doing, going to school. We're preparing to send our children back. And over the last weeks, I have thought a lot about what's in front of me. I've done a lot of cooking. I make banana hugs that I send to loved ones, just mini banana loaves, to let them know how I love them and how I miss them, and let them know someone's thinking of them. I've sent quite a few out to friends and family. My list continues to grow. There are workers around the neighborhood that are city workers or, different people. I try to make a treat for. All right. I'm getting my, I'm adding my flour to my butter and sugar. The butter and sugar have incorporated themselves well between themselves, like we do in life sometimes. Sometimes we have a difficult situation or difficult people or a project. And sometimes when you got to learn people or you get a feeling about people, or sometimes it's important for us to pay attention to, what we feel about something. If my cookies didn't come out right, my project didn't turn out right. But sometimes we need to look at that and see, okay, was I prepared? What was I looking for? The importance of what's in front of you. Sometimes all that's in front of you is all you have. So you don't have time to go and say, well, I got to find or go to the store. It's much with cooking. I didn't have as many of all of the ingredients to make a batch, because I make, when I cook, I tend to make more than one thing. So what happens is sometimes I run out of, even when I have extra. One good example is flour. It's hard to find flour in most stores. What I found was important. I would go to the store every time I went and just buy a bag of flour, whether I needed it at that moment. And now I am finding that flour is not that easy to find. So I'm adding pecans that I ground up, and then I'm going to just let this hang out and stir a little bit, and I'll let you see our dough. So when you're working on a project, sometimes somebody brings to the table a piece of this and a piece of that. And of course, there are people that don't carry their weight. And then there are people that carry a weight in a different form. Sometimes it looks like I have all the ingredients I need, and then I find out later, oh my goodness, I don't have that. I've done a lot of substitutions in my life. And at first I was scared to even try a recipe if I didn't have everything that they were asking for. But coming upon the years that I have cooked, no, I'm not a perfect cook in everything. And sometimes substitutions or doing something on the fly doesn't work, but most of the time it does. You have a sense of taste and style that only you have. So sometimes when you're working on a project or working with someone and they don't have a degree like yours, or you don't have that like this one, don't let that stop you. You're more than your degree. You're more than what people think and what others, what it looks like. So I want to show you what our cookie dough looks like. Our springtime cookies look like, our dough. And I'm going to begin this process now. This is, I'm going to turn this off so that I don't do anything. Okay, so what I do is I actually have, and I know it's here because I made sure it was here. I put it someplace I could find it more easily. Duh. So I have my cookie sheet, and I'm taking a melon ball. You can use your fingers or your hands, but I'm using this melon because I want them to come out kind of uniform. I really don't care because, if I'm eating it, but sometimes people like to see a product that is more uniform. So I'm going to take it, and I'm just going to put them on the tray and get them in the oven. The oven's on 325. They're gonna cook about 15 minutes, maybe less, because as most of us do, we know that ovens are different. So I don't want to tell you that. And I used to, I don't know about you, but I used to really think that everything that the recipes called for to follow that direction. And I have had cookie recipes that people had put on 350 for 40 minutes, and I put it on 350, and no, they were either not done, underdone, or overdone. So you have to do you. This is the part of cooking that you do you. These kind of remind me of the old, when I used to go to the drugstore, dating myself here, Walgreens and Woolworth used to have an ice cream counter, and they would have black walnut ice cream, and it looked so much like this. So I'm going to get the last few of these, and then I'm going to bake them. Now I want them to be kind of like snowball, but you know, sometimes the only way to get a snowball circle is to snowball it yourself. The melon baller helps, but I really want you to see the effect of this. So I'm just doing my circle. The other thing about perspective is it is yours. You have your own perspective, and nobody can take that from you. Your feelings are your feelings, and nobody can say your feelings something wrong with them, because all of us got them. Good, bad, ugly, indifferent. We have feelings, and feelings are feelings. Sometimes we want to do what our feelings tell us, and sometimes we don't, and sometimes we should know better. And sometimes, you know, our feelings are right on point. So understanding our feelings, how I feel about cooking, how I feel about moving forward, how I feel about going back to work, how I feel about being home. Sometimes it's a feeling and we have to just work through it. And sometimes we have to find out, where does that feeling come from? So when I make my cookies, I'm going to pop these in the oven. I actually have enough for a couple, probably another, so I'll make a bigger one. The recipe calls for double, but I made this smaller because I was only sharing it with one person. If I made it too big, I'd be eating all of them. So this is going to go in the oven for 325 for about, as I said, about 15 minutes. And then while they're baking, I'm going to show you a trick and make our flower colors. Stay tuned. Well, I'm taking them out of the oven, and I want to show you what I did. First of all, I'm going to take them and dip them warm in powdered sugar. And then they're white, and I put them on the tray. So I keep doing this, and all of them will be white. I mentioned about perspective before. We renamed this cookie, instead of snowball, we're calling it a springtime. Sometimes we think we need to do a whole bunch of changes to ourselves, when all of us need to change, of course, but sometimes we just need to change how we see ourselves. Sometimes, what are the voices that you're saying to yourself? Are you calling yourself winter, cold? Are you calling yourself something different? Or are you seeing how amazing you are? And sometimes it's just the words that you say to yourself. We changed this from cold, winter, snowball cookies, with nothing wrong with that. But there we go. And of course my hands are messy. So I took, and we changed ourselves to some, just changed the outside. Sometimes we just need to change how we we see ourselves. So moving that aside, I took some food coloring and I colored my confectioner sugar about a half a cup. I used pastel colors, so the colors are very light, but I made a green and I made pink and I made yellow. So I've already dipped them in white. So now I'm gonna dip them in, I'm gonna take one and dip it in yellow. May not be a big difference, but it'll be, and then I put it back on the tray. And then I'll take another one and dip it in pink. And I want to be careful because they tend to break up the cookies because of the dough and they're still warm. And then a couple green. Green is a springy color. Uh-oh, I just broke up green. I guess I'll just have to eat that. The cookies are, as I said, they will break, but that's our little secret. You know, if they break, they break. They break, they break. It doesn't change how they taste. Oh, my fingers are so fingery. So my colors are not very pronounced, but for me, they're enough. So I got pink, and then I have yellow. And my yellows are, you can actually see this light yellow. And then I've got green. And of course, I'm wearing my colors. Sometimes my perspective about myself, sometimes I do. I see myself sometimes through the eyes of someone else. And sometimes that's good because we need to know what others see. But it's so important for us to see ourselves through our own eyes and not through the things that we are doing or someone says we're doing. So take a look at this recipe. They tend to be a little messy, but they are so delicious. Here's the finish. Our springtime cookies. You have a good one. Do your do. Who are you? You are this amazing person created for greatness. This was not a hard recipe, but it is a little messy. Together we can do this. You have a good one. Talk soon. Bye-bye.